Hi, Lori here. I'm solo today because we're talking about Ryan this time. If you've ever wondered whether it's normal to become roommates with your husband instead of his wife, here are 5 signs that showed up in my own marriage. I'm married to a brilliant autistic man, and for years I wondered if something was fundamentally wrong between us, when really, we just didn't have the name for it yet. By sign number 5, you'll understand something that took us over 2 decades to put into words. So let's get into it. Sign number 1, physical affection has quietly disappeared, and I mean all of it. Even the hand on the shoulder, the hug at the door, sitting close on the couch instead of on opposite ends. Sometimes there are real seasons where sexual intimacy simply isn't appropriate. Illness, stress, burnout, sensory overload. Those are all real for anyone. But if you're autistic or ADHD, sensory overwhelm can shut the whole system down way faster or for longer periods of time. During those stretches, either him or I generally have nothing left to give. That's not rejection. That's our nervous systems telling us it's done for the day. Even in hard times, however, romance can and should still happen, even without heavier physical intimacy. When the romance itself goes quiet too, that's the bigger issue. Here's what matters, especially with Ryan being autistic. He needs me to say the quiet parts out loud and clearly every time. Someone else might catch the real meaning in the tone of my, I'm fine, but he may not. And the gap can hurt both of us. So now, even if I think it should be obvious, I tell him, we are fine. I can see everything you're doing to support me, but it's genuinely me that's not fine right now. If you could just stay close, I need you more than usual, just not in the way you might be hoping for, and that's okay. That phrase took me years to figure out, and it changed everything. If shutting down and not being able to explain it sounds familiar, that's one of the patterns our free neurodivergent couples clarity quiz was built to identify. It'll tell you if this is your specific pattern or something else, and the link's right there in the description. Sign number 2, your daily lives have split into 2 complete separate tracks. You handle your responsibilities and he handles his, and you cross paths at dinner. But even when the discussion is about household management, it's sneaky because it looks fine from the outside. The house runs smoothly and nobody's fighting, but underneath, you're just coexisting. Now, this is tricky because for the autistic partner, they thrive in the routine and in the structure. For us, this showed up as Ryan disappeared into his own projects, genuinely losing time in them, the way autistic hyperfocus works, and resurfacing expecting everything to be exactly where he left it. It wasn't a lack of caring. Initiating and maintaining the small, ongoing thread of a relationship is its own kind of executive functioning task, and that's a real place things can quietly fall apart. It's easy for a partner to forget the other is there when you don't feel like a priority. What turned this around for us was building something together on purpose, which, funny enough, is how this channel started. Now, one of the ways I know we're doing okay is that we prioritize each other. I'll leave a night out with friends early because I have a standing date with my husband, and I actually want to keep it. Sign number 3, resentment showing up in your tone. The short answers, the eye rolls, the way you talk about him when he's not in the room. Mine built slowly from repeating the exact same feedback over and over and over and getting frustrated when it didn't stick, instead of asking whether I was even delivering it in a way he could use. Ryan may have been genuinely trying this whole time. He just didn't have the information he needed to act on it. And honestly, by then, I couldn't always tell whose resentment I was reacting to. Mine, his, or just years of built-up exhaustion leading to the dangerous zone of giving up. Here's the part I wish someone had told us earlier. So much of the resentment was really grief in disguise. Grief over the years we spent assuming the other person just didn't care, when neither of us had the language yet. We were both late diagnosed, and once we had the language, the resentment lost most of its grip almost immediately. not because the problem disappeared, but because it finally made sense. Sign number 4, the one that took us longest to understand, is that you have no intentional time together. Being in the same house doesn't count, and neither does family time. Sometimes even a scheduled movie night doesn't count. Here's something I didn't appreciate until much later. Masking takes energy. If Ryan is out with family or in a group setting, a huge amount of his energy goes towards managing that environment, not towards connecting with me. So time spent together while masking, surrounded by other people, wasn't actually building anything between us because there wasn't much of him left over to give. Genuinely intentional time, distraction free, chosen on purpose, isn't a luxury for a neurodivergent couple. It's closer to a requirement. He was actually the one who kept asking for this time. It took me years to understand how much he needed it. I spent too much of that time worrying I was asking too much of people watching the kids or worrying about the cost. I'm done feeling that way. And honestly, if we'd framed it as a need instead of an indulgence, I think our support systems would have understood too. Sign number 5, your conversations have become entirely logistics. Schedules, kids, who's packing what, real information, zero actual connection. I have to own my part in this one too. For a long time, I told Ryan he needed to talk to me more. That felt like a clear request to me. It was not a clear request to him. Autistic brains tend to want the actual instructions, not the vague emotional shorthand, and typical brains, or my ADHD brain, isn't always great at producing the actual detailed instructions in the first place. What I actually needed wasn't more words from him. I needed him to listen and empathize and have a conversation, not solve it and move on. But I never said that part. I just kept repeating that I wished he'd talk to me more, getting frustrated when nothing changed and never asking whether the request itself made sense to him. The fix wasn't more talking, it was getting specific. And specificity turns out to be its own love language in a neurodivergent marriage. Sometimes the conversation was just direct questions back and forth, kind of like the quiz Ryan created. If you want to pinpoint which one of these is doing the most damage in your relationship, the free neurodivergent couples clarity quiz will do that for you in about 2 minutes. It's linked in the description and worth it tonight. Before I go, of these 5 signs, which one hit closest to home for you? Drop the number in the comments. You don't need to explain it, just naming it is usually the first real step. Now that you know the 5 signs, the obvious next question is, what do I actually do about them? We covered exactly that in our video on the wisdom of saying yes to reconnection, so go watch that one next. Thanks for watching, and remember, neurodivergent couples can make relationships work.